Somewhere in the Middle East, somewhere among the 23 countries and the 400 million people, lies Israel. A place continuously on the news, and a place which holds so many opinions. But what do we really know about Israel? Israel is 0.18% of the entire size of the Middle East. It has a population of just 8.5 million and can fit 545 times into the rest of the Arab world. It is roughly the size of Wales. But what of the history of Israel? What are the beginnings of this modern yet ancient land? Not long ago, in 1948, Israel was established by its first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, but Israel's story actually begins 4,000 years earlier. In 2000 BC, the patriarch Abraham made a deal with God to be a father among many nations, but of one in particular, Israel. Later, the Israelites led by Moses would be freed from slavery from Egypt and taken to Israel. So minuscule, yet with such ancient roots tracing all the way back to the Old Testament, Israel carries momentous religious significance for the Jewish people and their heritage. In 1947, the UN approved to divide Palestine into both a Jewish and Arab state. The Jews rejoiced, and a year later declared Israel's independence. Unfortunately, this act resulted in 5 Arab countries' refusal to accept the new Jewish state, and they invaded and launched a war throughout the country. Over a year of intense conflict, and the tiny Jewish state proved victorious, having secured an independent state in its homeland for the first time in over 2,000 years. Almost immediately, the 850,000 Jews living in Arab countries were expelled. Fast forward 19 years to 1967, when the conflict exploded once again. Egypt made a bold move, blocking Israel's access to the Red Sea, thus cutting her oil supply. The move was deemed an act of war. Syria joined Egypt and encircled Israel with more powerful forces than the Israel Defense Forces could muster. As a result, Israel took action, and miraculously, after 6 days, the underdog defeated the bullies, and they once again secured their borders. Israel offered to give back all land acquired in exchange for peace and recognition. The response? No peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, no negotiations with Israel. Egypt and Syria, hoping to win back lost territory, launched surprise attacks on Yom Kippur in 1973, the holiest day of the year for Jews. Israel was unprepared, with Arab armies quickly advancing from all sides. Only after considerable time and skilled combat, the IDF regained its strategic advantage. The result? A ceasefire, leading to the first peace agreement between Israel and Egypt, and Israel's returning of Sinai to its neighbour. And then peace once more in 1994. Jordan signed a peace treaty with Israel, ending 46 years of war between the two neighbours. The fight for peace would continue on. Efforts to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict were tried with fantastic offers in 2000 at the Camp David summit and in 2008. But each time the Palestinians said no. And then again in 2005, Israelis left their homes in the Gaza Strip, giving the land to the Palestinians, but again the response was one of violence, with over 15,000 rockets being fired at Israeli cities over the following 12 years. West Bank settlements are often called the biggest obstacle to peace. Let's examine this. Back in 1920, the San Remo Agreement, which was adopted by the League of Nations in 1922 and United Nations in 1945, promised the West Bank within the new State of Israel. However, in 1948, Jordan captured this and illegally annexed it. Years later, in 1967, Israel recaptured the West Bank, rendering it disputed rather than occupied. What is true is that in any future peace deal, the settlement issue can be resolved through land swaps as part of a negotiated peace process. But despite the many attempts at peace being refused, peace has continued to be Israel's objective, and Israel continues to campaign for peace with the rest of her neighbours. Despite its tiny size and debated issues, one can see miraculous growth in Israel. A land once desolate and barren not even 100 years ago has transformed into a democratic nation, with modern cities, new infrastructure and high-tech industries. The only democracy in the Middle East, Israel welcomes people of all religions to practice their faiths freely and endeavours to embrace its diverse populations. The 20% of the population who are Muslim enjoy equal rights as Israeli Arabs. Tel Aviv, known as the party capital of Israel, is also renowned as one of the best gay cities in the world. Each year, more than 30,000 tourists descend on Israel to celebrate diversity at the only Pride celebrations in the Middle East. Known as the Startup Nation, Israel is a pioneer and leader in high-tech and medical research, creating ingenious innovations including the USB stick, Waze GPS, antivirus and cybersecurity software and instant messaging services. In the UK, 1 in 7 drugs prescribed by the NHS are Israeli. In Africa, Israel leads the way in water technology, giving people longer and healthier lives. Despite continuous unrest, Israel has been able to grow and prosper, developing and innovating for the rest of the world in a time when it seemed all odds were against her.